I'm a 15-year-old girl who lives in New Zealand, but when this took place, I was around 12 years old. In 2016, a couple days before Christmas, the worst thing happened to us. We unfortunately found out that my aunt died, which was on my dad's side, and they were both very close to each other. She was a jockey, and unfortunately, it didn't end very well. Her favorite thing was the smell of lilies, which are flowers. This will be useful for later on. About 2 years after her death, we visited her again for Christmas, and we'd been there to see her many times, but this time, it felt different in a way. The air was heavy, and I got this feeling of dread. It was so overwhelming that I had to stay in the car for a bit. Once I thought the bad feeling had calmed down, I decided to hop out and look around the cemetery. As I was doing it, I smelt the most familiar smell, the smell of lilies. At first, it was kind of comforting in a way, but then I felt like I was being watched, but I couldn't tell whatever it was that was watching me. It didn't want me there, so I needed to leave, and I listened to my gut feeling. Not shortly after, once all of us were in the car driving back, we saw that there was something in the middle of the road, so we stopped. But the longer we stared at it, the more we realized it was my aunt. She looked worried, and about 2 seconds later, a car came flying by in full speed, and then she disappeared. It scared me so much that I couldn't sleep for the next few nights. But the longer I thought about it, the more I realized that she saved us that day, and that she was really looking out for us. I know you might not believe me, and I wouldn't either, but it's 110% real, and it's still vividly stuck in my head. My sister is 2 years older than me. I was approximately 15 when this occurred, so she was probably 17 at the time. It was Christmas Eve, either 2004 or 2005, I think, and we were stuck at my grandmother's house in Michigan. My grandmother was at her home in Florida, but my family stayed at her Michigan house to be near the other family in that area. It was painfully boring that night, and my parents had gone out to dinner with the other adults. That meant it was just me, my sister, and our little brother, who was approximately 5 years old, at the house. I remember putting my brother to bed and going to sit on the couch so I could plug my new laptop in. Suddenly, my sister in the living room started yelling to get the hell out of her spot. She wanted to plug her laptop in. I don't remember exactly what I said to her, but I know I wouldn't have given it up without a fight. Nothing was physical, but the yelling woke my brother. I put him back to bed and returned to the living room/kitchen area. At that point, my sister was in the kitchen. She looked at me, apologized, and offered me the internet plug. I was so surprised because she never apologizes. After all that, I decided to go to bed and spend the rest of my night texting my boyfriend, so I cautiously accepted her apology, but declined the plug. She then proceeded to try and convince me to sit there. When I reiterated I was going to bed, it was like a light switch went off. She didn't say anything, but I could see it in her eyes. Those eyes changed, and suddenly were focused at the butcher block of knives. The next thing I know, she was reaching for them, and they were between us. I grabbed the Windex bottle that happened to be next to me at the time, and sprayed her face before turning and running down the hallway. As I ran, I could hear her yelling at me and coming down the hallway too. I went into the first room I came across, which was a bathroom, and locked the door. Within seconds, she started banging on the door, and I called my parents to tell them my sister was trying to get me. For 10 minutes, she tried to break down that door, but then suddenly, there was silence. What broke the silence was her voice apologizing again. This time, I knew better and stayed away. When my parents arrived, there was a butcher knife under a couch pillow directly in front of the bathroom in which I was hiding. It was then that I realized the internet spot she wanted to give me faced away from the kitchen. I have no doubt that night she planned on doing something menacing. I may not be any kind of expert, but I believe there's more to this world than mere humans can hope to understand. I've always had a very fine-tuned sense for what I believe to be unexplainable things. Moments where I feel like something I can't quite explain with any rationality happens. Later on in life, I would be told that what I have can most easily be explained as some weak physic or supernatural energy by a Wiccan witch. Nothing too impressive, but just enough to let me feel those entities even when I can't see them. Something like the ghost in my grandparents' guest room, or the malicious entity haunting the stairs and basement garage. The same uncanny sixth sense that my mom observed when my younger brother was born, stronger than her own maternal sense. This was to the point where I understood when my brother needed something before he even knew and could make a sound. I would even wake him up in the middle of the night without fail. But I think there may be more to it, as this incident leads me to believe. My family had recently moved to British Columbia, Canada that winter. I was 10 at the time, and while by no means were we in the boonies, we moved into an older trailer near a well-known hiking trail and a small Christmas tree farm. Immediately, there was something off about the area. Something that my parents waved off as new home anxiety. I knew that I wasn't just not used to the place, but that something weird was going on here. I did my best to put it off my mind, but within 2 weeks of the move, I began to notice strange happenings. Firstly, the unsettling aura I just couldn't shake. Sleepless nights where I felt like I was being watched by something at my window. Strange shadows, there 1 second, gone the next. Voices, soft, whispering my name, and only when I was alone and in my room, near the window. However, whenever these incidents happened, soon after I would feel something brushing up against my shins and ankles. These instances would be near constant until I struck out on my own 8 years later. My parents insisted we'd take a family walk on the mountain trail, and though I didn't want to because I by no means am an outdoors man, something in me screamed not to go, that it was dangerous. But being barely 11, of course, my parents completely dismissed my concerns as being lazy, and we were off to the trail's main entrance. As soon as I stepped foot outside the car, the warning bells in my head were blaring louder. Something in me kept saying we had to leave, that something bad was going to happen there. The little voice in my head kept focusing on my diabetic mom, who at the time had a weight problem, dad with his disability that made him outright unable to run, that my bad lungs would make it impossible to run myself, and that the three of us were sitting ducks. I didn't know why I was so hyper-focused on running, on needing to get away. We were halfway through the walk when suddenly, I froze. The apprehension I'd felt about the whole event ramped up to 11. My parents thought I stopped because I was tired, and took the opportunity to take pictures of the lovely fall leaves. It was a gorgeous sight, but I knew there was something there, watching us, and it was not something we wanted to meet. I looked around, trying to find whatever was setting me off. All I saw was a fleeting shadow. I could feel the brushing, but the feeling of dread and fear only got stronger. The familiar touch unable to drive it away as it normally would. Whatever it was close. If it came at us, we wouldn't stand a chance, and I still didn't know what the hell it was. My parents still hadn't noticed something was wrong, and I felt my voice catch in my throat, not out of fear, but as if something wasn't letting me speak. I heard the leaves rustle. It was close, so close. I glanced where the noise was coming from, and saw a shadow for a split second before it vanished behind a tree. And as it vanished, something changed. It felt like a volcano had erupted in my chest. It felt explosive, angry, spewing burning clouds of toxic gas and ash. I was afraid, but I wasn't frozen anymore. I was angry, eyes locked on the area I'd seen the shadow at. I was no stranger to anger. I'm aggressive, and I always have been, but this rage was entirely new. The feeling against my leg stopped, but the fire was burning hotter, and this dangerous thing just hiding outside of my field of view. I felt it lock up in fear all on its own. I convinced my parents to pick up the pace, practically speed walking the rest of the loop, not daring to let the fire spark in my chest die. The strange presence lingered, much farther off, but still watching, almost curious now. We left the trail and never went back. Then a few weeks later, my mom found out she was having my brother. I finally awoke to the soft glow of Christmas lights dancing on the walls of our living room. The tree stood tall, adorned with ornaments and a myriad of wrapped presents beneath its branches. It was Christmas morning, and excitement filled the air. Little did I know that festive day would soon turn into a chilling nightmare. As I descended the stairs, very happy to go look at my presents, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the warmth of holiday. My family had gathered in the living room, ready to unwrap the gifts that awaited us. The joy of Christmas morning was always infectious, and we exchanged laughter and smiles as we settled in front of the tree. I couldn't help but notice a large and beautifully wrapped present with a golden bow, a gift from my parents, no doubt. The anticipation grew with each passing moment. The room was filled with the rustle of wrapping paper, the delighted faces, and the joyous exclamations as each gift was revealed. But as the pile of torn wrapping paper grew, I noticed something unsettling. The large present with the golden bow was missing. Panic set in, and I frantically searched the room with the hope that it had been misplaced or maybe overlooked. My heart sank as the realization hit me. Someone had taken it. A sense of unease gripped the entire room as my family gathered around, realizing that one of our presents was now gone. The festive atmosphere turned tense, and we began to question each other, searching for an explanation. No one had seen anything suspicious, and the mystery hung in the air like a dark cloud. As we pondered the unsettling disappearance, a chill ran down my spine. The sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway, accompanied by the creaking of the floorboards. Panic set in as we had realized that an intruder had infiltrated our home on this holiday. I motioned for my family to stay put as I cautiously followed the sound of the footsteps. With them slowly behind me, the hallway was dimly lit, and I walked as the shadows danced behind me. My heart raced with each step, and the air became heavy with tension. Before you ask why I did this alone, my father was a heavy man, and he was right there behind me the whole time, but I told him to stay back because his noise would just be too loud. As I turned the corner, I came face to face with the intruder, a masked figure shrouded in the dark. And there it was. The stolen present was at his feet, the golden bow now tarnished and crushed under the weight of him. In that chilling moment, the intruder and I locked eyes, and a silent understanding passed between us. Without a word, the intruder fled to one of the rooms, locking the door and going out the window. He disappeared into the cold winter night, and the stolen gift, which once was a symbol of joy, laid there crushed. We ended up continuing our Christmas morning, but the festive spirit had been replaced by lingering fear, and that fear still exists to this day. Christmas Eve in Maine was usually a picturesque scene straight out of a holiday card, with snow-covered streets and cozy homes adorned with twinkling lights. This year, however, A looming blizzard threatened to turn the festive season into a chilling nightmare. I peered through the frost-covered window as the first snowflakes began to fall. The weather forecast had warned us of a severe blizzard, but no one anticipated the speed at which it would descend upon the town. The power flickered, then went out completely, plunging our home into the dark. Candles also flickered as we huddled together in the living room, wrapped in our blankets for warmth. The distant echoes of the wind and the creaking of snow-laden branches against the house created a weird symphony. As the hours passed, anxiety filled the room, and we knew we were stranded, cut off from the rest of the world by a wall of snow. All that we saw was our Christmas lights outside, dimly lighting the falling snow. Other than that, the world beyond our windows had disappeared. With each passing minute, the temperature dropped, and the once comforting warmth of our home began to wane. The blizzard showed no signs of letting up, and our supplies dwindled for that night. As it wore on, we stayed there when we heard a knock on the door shatter the frozen silence. I cautiously opened it to find a fellow resident, desperate and shivering from the cold. He pleaded for shelter, explaining that his own home had succumbed to the storm's fury. We hesitated to welcome him in this blizzard. Not only did we hesitate because he was a random man, but we hesitated because he seemed normal. Normal in the sense that he didn't have much grief about his home being buried by snow. And it was also the fact that he was a random man, not even our neighbor. At the end of the night, we ultimately decided to allow him into our garage, and we gave him a blanket to stay there. We didn't let him into our home, as we didn't know what he was really capable of. By the time everyone had fallen asleep, the morning had arisen. The first thing that was on everybody's mind was to check the stranger in the garage. Upon slowly opening the door, my entire family had entered the garage. To our surprise, everything was turned over in the garage, with boxes on the floor, and the entire garage door completely open. Even our blanket was gone, as if this man had just gotten up, taken the blanket, and left. We don't know what else he took, or if he even stole anything else at all. Everything in the garage wasn't of much importance to us, so it didn't matter much. But what had us confused is, what was that man really up to? And did he even need a place to stay at all? Or were his intentions much more sinister than he let them on to be? Christmas in my small suburban town had always been a time of joy, with neighbors exchanging cheerful greetings. As I decorated my home with lights and hung ornaments on the tree, an uneasy feeling settled in the pit of my stomach. Strange occurrences began to unfold that day. Subtle signs that someone was watching, someone who knew more about my life than I was comfortable with. It started innocently enough with an anonymous holiday card left in my mailbox. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the message inside contained intimate details about my daily routines and personal life. I dismissed it as a misguided attempt at spreading holiday cheer, but the unease lingered. Days passed, and the intrusions escalated. Packages arrived at my doorstep, each one containing items that only someone with intimate knowledge of my life would possess. Photographs of me taken without my knowledge, personal mementos, and even a recording of a private conversation I had. The stalker's twisted gifts were a chilling violation of my privacy. I became hyper-aware of my surroundings, constantly scanning the neighborhood for any sign of an unseen person. Every creak of the floorboard, every rustle of the wind outside, it all seemed to carry the weight of a hidden presence. Sleep became elusive as paranoia gripped my thoughts. I even called the police, but they said there was nothing they can do about it. The stalker's sinister game reached a climax. A chilling message was etched onto my front door with a sharp object. It spelled out ominous words that immediately made me call the police. This time, they promised to investigate the unsettling series of events. That night, as the town slept in anticipation of Christmas morning, I remained vigilant. I usually looked forward to Christmas, but this time, I was hoping there was a quick end in sight. Ultimately, the police investigation yielded no immediate leads, leaving me to grapple with the reality that the stalker might never be identified. It was the week before Christmas, and our office was buzzing with holiday cheer. The annual Christmas party was just around the corner, and everyone was excited to take a break from the daily grind. Little did we know that the festive spirit would soon be replaced by an unsettling encounter. Word had spread fast that a surprise Santa Claus was scheduled to make an appearance, courtesy of the Bearded Santa Company. The excitement grew as we eagerly anticipated the arrival of the jolly man in red. The clock struck 6, and the festive decorations sparkled under the office lights. Suddenly, the office door swung open, and a man dressed as Santa Claus entered. His beard wasn't quite matching the glossy perfection that we expected. However, he carried a sack over his shoulder, and his eyes darted nervously around the room. A hush fell over the crowd as the atmosphere shifted from joy to a weird uneasiness. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about this Santa. His costume seemed hastily put together, and his belly shook more from nerves than a bowl of jelly. As he started handing out gifts, I noticed they weren't the usual festive trinkets we received each year. Instead, they were oddly personal, as if he had done some questionable research on each recipient. Whispers circulated, and people began to exchange wary glances. It became apparent that this Santa was an imposter, not affiliated with any reputable company. Anxiety filled the air as the realization sank in. A stranger with unknown intentions had infiltrated our holiday celebration. The imposter Santa Claus began lingering around, engaging in awkward conversations and also invading personal space. His unsettling behavior escalated, and it became clear that he wasn't here to spread Christmas joy, but he was here for something more sinister. We grew increasingly uncomfortable, and the festive atmosphere morphed into weird and eerie tension. As the party continued on, a coworker discreetly contacted building security to handle the Santa Claus. The imposter Santa, oblivious to our suspicions, carried on with his peculiar antics. Once security arrived, they discreetly escorted him out, ensuring our safety and putting an end to this bizarre intrusion. Later on, we learned that he wasn't from the Santa Company, but he was a person with a criminal record. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and the neighborhood was bathed in the soft glow of festive lights. As I settled into the warmth of my home, nestled behind the twinkling Christmas tree, little did I know that my holiday spirit was about to take a disturbing turn. A sound at the door interrupted what everyone was doing. It was the doorbell ringing. Curiosity mingled with annoyance as I made my way to the front entrance, wondering who could be so persistent on Christmas Eve. Upon opening the door, I was greeted by an eerie sight. It was a group of Santas, each wearing identical, unsettling masks that concealed their faces. These were the types of masks that you'd find in a movie like The Purge. Their eyes, hidden behind vacant holes, stared into the abyss. The festive red suits were tainted by an unnatural stillness as I realized something was amiss. Without uttering a word, the masked Santas scattered into the night, leaving only behind the echo of their laughter. Bewildered, I closed the door, convincing myself it was a bizarre prank. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. The following night, the same unsettling ritual repeated itself. I opened the door to find them there again, their laughter now louder than before. This time I yelled at them, now angry at their annoyance. However, they did the same thing and ran off into the night. As the days passed, the nocturnal visits became a haunting routine. Each time I opened the door, I would find them laughing at my face. With each encounter, I got closer to calling the police on them, and with each encounter, their expressions contorted into grotesque grins under the masks. I could see part of their mouths moving and laughing, and it was starting to get to me. Sleep became elusive as the anticipation of their nocturnal visits gnawed at my nerves. The once celebrated Christmas season now felt like a descent into a nightmare. Determined to unravel the mystery, I joined forces with neighbors who had the same experience as me, along with a few police officers. Together, we set up surveillance cameras and kept a watchful eye on the neighborhood. The masked Santas, however, proved elusive, slipping through the shadows with the uncanny ability to evade us. As Christmas Eve approached, the tension in the neighborhood reached its peak. On that fateful Christmas Eve, as the clock struck midnight, the Santas gathered outside my door for a final performance. They sang for the first time, as I finally heard their real voices, and as soon as they sang was as soon as they left. I had never seen them again since that night, and I don't want to anymore. Santa was a figure I used to look up to, but now I don't want to ever see him again. The snow fell gently that Christmas Eve, blanketing the neighborhood in a pristine layer of white. As I peered through the frost-laden window, a sense of holiday magic filled the air. Little did I know that the enchantment unfolding before my eyes would transform into a chilling tale. It all began innocently enough. My family and I had decided to build a snowman in our front yard, a whimsical addition to our holiday decorations. The kids were bubbling with excitement, their laughter echoing in the crisp winter air. We crafted a classic snowman, 3 spheres stacked on top of each other, adorned with a carrot nose and coal eyes. The following morning, however, a peculiar sight awaited us. Our snowman was destroyed overnight. By who? We don't know, but it was gone. Either the weather had torn it down, or someone had come by and destroyed it themselves. But as the days passed, something even weirder continued to evolve. We had gone to sleep and woken up the next day to find our snowman back again. This time, it had features that we didn't put on before, and they were increasingly intricate and lifelike. It was almost as if an unseen artist had taken residence in our yard. As you can imagine, we didn't really mean anything by it when we were weirded out by it. We just thought that some person had come overnight and did it, and that was the end of it. Perplexed, I questioned my family, and no one claimed the responsibility for the snowman. So we sat around the dinner table, whispers of unease filling the room. The neighborhood eventually took notice, and soon a small crowd gathered in front of our house to look at it. The intricate snowman had become a block legend, drawing spectators from up and down the street. Some even speculated on the involvement of an expert snow sculptor, while others whispered about the supernatural, especially when we said we weren't involved. Every night, the detailed snowman continued to grow and captivate the neighborhood. We were kind of getting sick and tired of everyone showing up and being on our street in front of our house. It was then, after we had set up cameras in the front yard, we noticed something extremely strange. A man stopped in front of our house around 2:30 a.m. and not stopped by walking. I mean, he drove to our house and he parked it right there just to get out and fix this snowman. The man, wearing a snow hat with a pom-pom up top and a mask covering his mouth, pulled out a Polaroid picture and started to fix the snowman in accordance to what he was looking at on that picture. He then looked up at our house, noticing the red light on the camera, which I'd imagine spooked him, as he went back to his car right away and drove off. That was the last we ever saw of this snowman sculpture, as no updates occurred from then on and there out, and the spectators slowly dwindled while the snowman melted away.